Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's Meraki Monday. I'm Bobby Young, and we have Dan Stewart with us as well. Today, we're going to be going through a couple of kind of little, I guess you could call them appetizers, rather than kind of one big meal. We're going to kind of give you a couple of little things. We have a big announcement next week that we're definitely going to be covering in full around some announcements from Meraki. But this week, we're just going to kind of take a lot of the little things that have kind of come up and kind of put them into one little show for you today. So I'm going to introduce Dan Stewart, who's going to talk about some of the little features that we're going to be talking today, as well as some updates that happened on some existing solutions. And then we'll kind of demo some of those and kind of go through, what has changed and what you can expect from these products as well. Dan?
Thanks, Bobby. As we mentioned in a prior video with Kevin Wills as one of our guest hosts, that Meraki was looking to put lead times automatically into CCW for your estimates so you can properly see hardware inventory in real time. Because as Meraki exists right now, it's direct ship only. And up until recently with this addition, we didn't get an accurate update on when that will be shipping from Meraki from the estimates creation tool. So now, if we go to CCW estimates, which I've already logged into here, and we add a couple Meraki products, we should see that now they have a real-time lead time in our database, and we can go ahead and understand and talk to our customers effectively on these products as they're going to ship from Meraki, what's coming in short term, what might be a little bit delayed, and should we look at an alternate product based on any installation requirements for their solution. So, Bobby, I'll ask you a quick favorite Meraki part number off the top of your head here, and we can pop it in to see what we might get from a lead time opportunity. So, what do you got?
Let's go with the MR52.
52, a classic. Classic. We'll throw it on there. We'll hit add. This one, being classic, not only do we get to see that it is a end of sale model, but we do get to see the effective lead time is 4 days. Not a bad option there. I'm going to pick another access point if we want to stay on that train. A slightly newer model, the MR36.
I prefer vintage, by the way.
You do. Retro chic, classic. Um, An MR36 being the next generation Wi-Fi 6 indoor access point, we now get a lead time effectively of 33 days. So an example showing that we have a different day lead time, which was not in CCW prior to last week. Now we get to showcase that in demo as Meraki has rolled that out. Much like other Cisco products that exist, you can now put the lead time or expect lead time coming from those part numbers to really make sure everything is locked and loaded there. So let's take a look at one more. MS, I don't know, 225, that's a good switch. 48 ports, I think so. This switch, look at that 1 day lead time. This one seems to be in good standing there. So as we said, a quick overview of this portion of what Meraki has done recently. We talked about it a video or so ago. Just really want to showcase that in the quick demo that it is alive in your estimates portal today. And when you look at Meraki, you now can get a better understanding exactly how long it might take to ship to you or your customer.
Great, Dan.
Yeah, Bobby, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that's great news.
It is great news for everyone involved. A lot less manual calls to your sales teams, manual checks from our teams when looking at these types of opportunities. So now it's one less phone call you have to make to see how long this might take to ship. We now can find that automatically from CCW. So great news for everybody. um, Another opportunity that we can highlight here is to do with the Meraki sensors. We also have mentioned that Meraki has launched their MT11 sensor, and in doing so, Meraki actually has launched a new firmware update to the MT portfolio, moving up to now version 1.3. So let's go check that out. We'll go to our firmware updates just to make sure we've taken advantage of that. And just a notification at the top of our interface here, we see the MT temperature probe sensor is now available. So we now can see that as available, and kind of the one thing that we wanted to see from the release notes of the MT 1.3 was the fact that it does go ahead and add the MT11 to our supported dashboard amongst other capabilities. So we've gone ahead, we've updated our environment. We've now on version 1.3, which is great for our sensors. And what we're going to find is that the sensor updates, really two things have come out. One because of 1.3, and one was just a dashboard push into one of the sensors. So the look and feel is going to be about the same that we've had before, but the main change has really been done to the alert profiles. What is now added, we have this sensor status alerts, which is now a default setting within our profile environment. Before, we had to create these environmental alerts, which we had and we've showcased in prior episodes here of the different sensors we did deploy. But now this new sensor status alert default update, we can go in and now give a little bit more hardware alerting functionality to our devices. So now we can see if the physical sensor has issues. Prior, the sensors were really just reporting on their environment variables. Was the door open? Was there water on the floor? Was the temperature too hot? Now we can say, well, what happens to the actual sensor hardware itself? In this case, we can see if the sensor is no longer reporting into its connected camera or access point for a period of time. Only right now, the drop down of 60 minutes. So you have 1 hour. If it goes offline, you'll get an alert. If the battery level goes below a certain threshold, um, that's an important piece of the conversation because these sensors are driven by AA batteries. We'll take a look at one of the sensors that showcases how the battery level is, but you probably didn't want to just have a check mark on your own calendar 5 years from date of deployment of when the battery might run out. Now we get a notification that if the battery does go below 5%, it's time to, go and replace those AA batteries. From the different sensors themselves, we can now see if the probe has been disconnected. Everything right now, besides the temperature sensor, we have a probe sensor, we have the water sensor, and the door sensor if the has been tampered with or removed from that. But nothing really to state today about anything being tampered with the temperature MT what is it, the MT10 sensor in that environment. So a couple things we can now check into our environment. If that cable has been disconnected, I will add, and if anything's been tampered with our door sensor. We don't have an MT11 yet, so we won't align to that one. And why not? If it goes offline, let's get an alert on that as well. Again, we can understand if we want to alert anybody into our environment. So since Bobby is on our event here, we can see if Bobby Young comes up. Let's see, does that come up? Stuart, I should come up. I'll give myself an alert, and we can change this network-wide alerts from the environment, a text, or if we want to put a webhook here again, like we've done for some of our other events as well. I will save this up. And then once that saves, we'll go back to our default status. And now we can see that we've added our alert recipient when we now have these thresholds set up for our overall alert profile. So something small, but hardware sensing profiles are handy. And this was something that was introduced with the 1.3 firmware update. One other thing we can look at here is if we go into the door sensor. This update has actually gone along with the timeline of activity for the door itself. Before, if you might have remembered, it was a line graph that showed kind of a peak and valley of open or closed. Now we have a little bit more contextual data of gaps in the timeline here. So anytime an activity is triggered, in this case, a door is open, that would be an event where we don't want the door to be open, we're going to get a notification or a timeline bar if something has been generated. If nothing's happening, it's just going to give us a clear blank space. So if no alerts and no activities happening in the timeline, it'll be blank. If something does happen, you're going to get this notification. It will show as an icon into your viewpoint here. And even if we get a notification that an alert was created because the door was opened for a prolonged period of time back on our sensor duration, we now can see when an alert might have happened if the door was open for too long of a time based on the alert structure that I did create. If we pull it back into a wider view and go beyond just a day or a few hours, they've also updated the timeline graph here as well with a little bit of some color coding to make sure you can see, is there a frame of easy viewing reference with the darker shaded area indicating more activity happening or more openings on this door or window. And then if there's any sort of events or alerts created where there might have been a challenge with the sensor, or we have something where the door was open to trigger an alert for a period of time, and how many openings there might have been and when that period of timeline was going for that event. So this one has 4 openings. We get a pretty dark square on the list. This one indicates 1 opening, so the square is much lighter. So visually we can see, hey, is there a certain time of day, a certain date that has these events being triggered? And from a quick view, I can see that actually, June 25th, the Friday, we saw a lot of activity happening over different time periods, of which different alerts are being triggered as well. And I can go into those dates and events and start clicking onto that specific time frame. And now I can go into 11 to 12 on that date and see what was happening, why was it triggering it, and why was the door open for so long in that time frame, and find out from the camera feed that can be linked to these door sensors as well of why that was happening, and then make determinations of, should it have been open for that period of time. So that was a
I gotta
handy
say
dashboard
that
update. Yeah, please.
I gotta say that just the more that they add to this, and Dan, I'll be honest, when when Meraki first came out with sensors, again, I was a little apprehensive in the same way that I would think I was apprehensive with the physical security cameras. But as they're adding more and more features on this, I got to say that this is stuff that is really nice to have in that single pane of glass dashboard. The idea that we're taking you know um, networking security so seriously, but then kind of the joke in network security is that you could put as many kind of stop gaps in there, but if somebody goes into their email and physically opens up that email, then it's a layer 7 problem, right? It's the people that you have to train not to do these types of things. Physical security is kind of that same thing, right? You can have this really really robust security system on your network, but if you don't trust the people that are physically coming in, or if you don't know that there's going to be people physically coming into your building and plugging things in and doing things once they're on the network, then it doesn't matter what what kind of firewall you have behind everything. So just the idea, and I mean, like you said, looking at this and very very quickly seeing, it looks like, what is this, about a month,
This is
and I
30
can
days. Yep.
I can see it immediately that no one was in those rooms on the weekends when no one should have been there to begin with. Or like you said, nobody, just having the ability to say, hey, you know what, I really want to know if somebody puts something, wedges the door open, right? Which happens all the time. Hey, we want to come in here, but it's we got to get our key card out every single time. We just want to make sure that we'll take a shoe or something like that and kind of wedge it under the door. Um, Maybe to make their job easier, but from a security perspective, obviously that's a big issue. That's something you want to have visibility on, and you want some sort of alert to say, hey, someone's been holding the door open for 10 minutes, right? This is something that obviously is an issue. So again, the idea to have this, and Dan and I, we always go back to that managed service style of looking at Meraki, right? The idea that you're managing the physical security of an end user alongside the rest of their network, to be able to report this to your end user and be able to say, hey, just so you guys know, we have an entry in here that that was on a Saturday when you guys told us that everything was supposed to be closed, or here's a couple of times where that thing was wedged open. You might want to have a training with your staff to basically tell them the severity of, not leaving these doors open or anything like that.
Yeah, it's always, it's analytics, right? So these sensors are doing just
Visibility.
that. They're
Yep.
going to report information, and what you do with it is what makes it impactful. So, it's broadening it out, like Bobby mentioned, for 30 days. We can see that, is there a certain time of day where we see more activity? And like again, the darker the square, it represents more activities. In this case, 34 openings happening on this specific time period with this specific day. And then you can click on that event and go right into it and make determinations on why that was, right? So I'll go back into that day, and we can see these little events pop open, doors closed, doors open again, and it kind of just does this back and forth up to a count of 34 open states. You know, that could mean that, that was a day where more of our associates were in the office because this door is to our data center, and more people were coming in to do work on that day to facilitate business for the right reasons, right? So we can use that as a positive effect to say, yeah, we were doing more things in our center to report to our management that things were getting done more on this day than other days. But if it's more from a security standpoint to say, yeah, door was opened on, Saturday at, 2 a.m., no one should be in there, why was that? And we can kind of point to it, go to the camera data effectively, and use the sensor, use the cameras to align to that data finding to achieve that business outcome. And that's what this is all really driving towards. One last thing just to highlight, the battery. I did mention that we can now have those thresholds of what percentage of your battery is at to make sure you get those alerts. We can see that this battery is at 91% current status. And I did make a note in the installation that the date was March of this year when it was installed, and we can kind of use that as a tracking point to when the battery would need to be replaced, as we can see if the projected time frame that Meraki says of battery longevity does meet the real world implementation of what we're seeing from our involvement as well with the different sensors we have across. So we'll keep an eye on that, and we'll report back as that does meet its inevitable battery demise. Other than that, that was kind of the main things you wanted to highlight. The new lead times in CCW, very handy for our sales motions, and then continued updates to our MT product portfolio of innovations in firmware and software, bringing more capabilities to this brand new offering from Meraki. Hopefully in the future, we will have new products to highlight as they do roll into our facility to test. We're looking at the MT11, the MV2, and other products that we want to bring in that we can bring to you as well.
Thanks,
With
Dan.
that, yeah.
Yeah, again, appreciate the time that you took into kind of getting a lot of these that maybe by themselves didn't deserve its own Meraki Monday, but kind of having them all kind of pooled together. Hopefully, this was successful in getting information out to our partners. So with that, again, please join us next week for a very special Meraki Monday, where we're going to be going over some of the new announcements that Meraki is going to be making as far as some new solutions. Other than that, if you have any questions, please reach out to us, Dan in the Business Transformation Center, myself over at Ingram at robert.young@ingrammicro.com. And again, we'll see you on the next one.